Hey guys, welcome back. I'm the Metal Jesus, and today I'm going to attempt the impossible. See, the thing is, there was over 1,100 retail games released for the Xbox 360 so far, actually, and that's not including over 600 Xbox Live Arcade games. So to whittle that down to a top 10, frankly, is brutal. But you know what? It's so much fun to do. I hope you guys enjoy this. And at the end, I'm going to have honorable mentions because, well, there are so many great games. Let's take a look. Number 10 is going to come as quite the shock to a lot of people because I don't know if a lot of people played this game, but it is Hydro Thunder Hurricane, and it's awesome. Now, sure, I like racing games. I like games where there's fast action and really fun physics, and this game has it all. But honestly, what turned the corner for me was the online multiplayer. I played this game with Pete Dorr and Gamester81 and Jason Heine, and I just had the best time. And I think that's what games are all about. And so I know this game's not going to make it on everyone's list, but the game is fantastic, and the multiplayer is so much fun. I highly recommend it.
Number 9.
Fable 2 is a bit of a surprise for me, honestly, because while I enjoyed the original Fable on the original Xbox, you know, it didn't exactly blow me away, but man, they got everything right with the sequel on Xbox 360. This is such a good game. For one, they just really expanded on the Fable universe, and they made it feel like a living and breathing place that you want to explore and also buy property in. You wanted to live here. I also feel like they really improved the combat in this game. It's so much more enjoyable. But really where this game stood out for me was the story and the characters and even the dog. Yes, the dog. I love the dog in this game. I feel like that they got it right. He was useful. He provided me with extra information about the environment. It was just a really great game, and I really enjoy games that give you a choice of your morality and whether you want to be really good or really evil. And one of my favorite things about this game is that you can be really, really evil, and it's so much fun to do that.
Number 8.
Here's another game that really took me by surprise, and that is Mark of the Ninja. And I didn't know anything about this game before it came out, but man, it is amazing because it really, really gets stealth perfectly. Now I know, I know that statement is gonna drive people crazy, but you know what? Don't judge until you play this game because, like I said, it does so many things right. And I think the number one thing that it does right is that it gives you all the information that you need to truly play stealthy on the fly. There's really not that much trial and error in this game. And that's the thing that can really kill a good or even mediocre stealth game is if you don't get the information that you need and there's a bunch of trial and error. This game has all of those mechanics boiled down into perfection. I also feel like this game benefits from being a 2D platforming game because one of the big challenges with a lot of stealth games that are in 3D is that you're never quite sure who is around you and who can detect you. Well, with a 2D game like this, you can always tell. And again, it just helps with the whole atmosphere, the whole playability of this game. It's just so well done.
Number 7.
Often people will ask me, what type of first-person shooters do I like to play? Do I like to play Halo? Do I like to play the Call of Duty series? Well, you know what? Often my answer is, no, I actually really prefer to play games like BioShock. So what does that mean? Well, BioShock to me is one of the best first-person shooters that I have ever played, and it has a lot of attributes that I really, really like. For instance, it's very story-driven. It's also a much slower experience. You don't just run around gunning down tons of dudes. It's almost like a mix of shooting and exploration, which I really like. Also, the game has a full-blown RPG element to it. You're constantly upgrading your weapons, your attacks, and your magic, which again is one of my favorite things too, is that I like this game because you can go through it and just run and gun the whole way through, or you can use magic. And again, I really like that in a first-person shooter. I just love the variety. I love it when you can make it your own experience. But really what sets this game apart is Rapture and the environment. I mean, there is no other game quite like this, especially at the time when this came out. It's so creepy and weird and twisted, and man, it's like a horror game, but it's, oh my God, but it's so much more. And of course, like any great game, it has an amazing ending that I never saw coming, and people still talk about it today. I love BioShock.
Number 6.
This is the pinnacle of music games, in my opinion. Now, of course, I'm a guitar player and I play in a band, and this game was just amazing when it first came out. You know, I thought actually that the Guitar Hero series was going to be the pinnacle of all this, but who knew? But Harmonix pulled out an amazing party game that just kept getting better and better. Now, I've talked about Rock Band on my other videos, and I've mentioned that one of my favorite things about this was that you could keep downloading new songs, whether it was country or jazz or blues or metal or rock or whatever, even pop. It was all here. And to that end, one of the great things that they did is that they released versions of specific bands that actually turned out really cool. Like, for instance, Green Day, their version of Rock Band actually was pretty awesome if you're a Green Day fan. But the thing that happened that I didn't see coming was that the Beatles themselves would get their own game. And of course, I'm a huge Beatles fan. I love their music, and so it was a total joy to get this version of the game.
Number 5.
It seemed like almost out of the blue, this new game called Dead Space came out last generation, and you know, I thought, it's probably gonna be some lame kind of survival horror game. Lots of companies have tried to do this before. Plus it was EA, I'm thinking, no way is this gonna be any good. Well, it was awesome. Not only was Dead Space 1 a really good game, surprisingly so, but it was scary as hell. I actually like really scary movies like John Carpenter's The Thing, man. The one that came out in the 80s. Holy crap. I mean, it was gory, but it was also really scary. And Dead Space nailed that. And then came along Dead Space 2, which again, I was like, oh man, they're gonna totally screw this up. But they didn't. Dead Space 2 actually was a very good game as well. Now, I would say, you know, it wasn't as groundbreaking as Dead Space 1, but I wanted to include it in this video because honestly, both of those games, they just go right together. They're awesome. If you are a fan of survival horror games and also really fucking scary games, definitely check these out. They're great.
Number 4.
Back in the 1990s and also the early 2000s, if you were to ask me what some of my favorite games of all time were, I would have included the original Fallout and Fallout 2. And so I was really surprised when they finally announced that they were working on a Fallout 3, because honestly, the original developers, they closed. They went out of business years ago. And so I thought a third one was never gonna happen. But then they said it was gonna be Bethesda, which I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. But then they said it's gonna be first person. I was like, oh man, how's this gonna work? Well, of course we all know that we didn't have anything to worry about, that Fallout 3 turned out to be basically a modern RPG masterpiece. It's such a good game. It does so many things right. And it's also a love letter to the original game. It keeps all that kind of weird 1950s sick, twisted sense of humor, but it's also incredibly violent and edgy. It's just an amazing game. One of my favorite moments of this game is very early on, you go into the city of Megaton, and down below is an unexploded atomic weapon. And I'll never forget that you were given a mission to either explode it or defuse it. And I was like amazed, and in that game, you can literally wipe out an entire city and it changes the game based on your decision. It was such a cool idea. And this game is full of all those little types of choices, tons of little details. It really is a modern masterpiece, and I love it so much.
Number 3.
The Dragon Age series made its debut during this generation of the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, and it was a total breath of fresh air. To start off with, one of the really cool things about the Origins game is that it actually has 6 origin stories in the very beginning to choose from, depending on your race or class. So that's right, if you want to get everything out of this game, you're going to be starting it 6 different times. And I've actually done that, well, for the achievements, of course. But honestly, it was actually really interesting because you start off in different cities and different parts of the world for each character. And then at a certain point in the beginning, they all meet up. And like any good role-playing game, this game is epic. And it also leads into the expansion pack, which I also have here, and I kind of consider it part of the main game, so that's why I'm showing it.
Number 2.
What do I say about this game other than my save game has, I think, 120 hours put into it, and my wife has over 200 hours in her save game. This is an amazing role-playing experience. What makes Skyrim so special? Well, it starts with me with that big open world. And, a lot of games try to do this, but they ultimately become kind of hollow and really not that interesting to explore. Skyrim is not like that. It is packed full of really interesting things to just wander out and discover. And it's amazing how well they pulled that off. There are a bunch of towns and cities to explore, lots of characters to meet, and dungeons as well. So you have the entire surface area to explore, but then you go into dungeons, and those things are the size of games. I mean, it's amazing. I also feel like they really honed in on combat and made it really fun to play it the way you want. So for instance, if you want to go in and you want to just beat people down with swords and axes, you can, but then you can also play this game completely with magic, or you can actually play and beat this game completely by stealth. As a matter of fact, I've seen a video out there where a guy is literally sneaks up on a dragon and kills it with his knife. I mean, it's just amazing because his stats were so high. Or you can also be an archer. This game's completely wide open and lets you play it the way you want. It's a true role-playing game.
And now, my number 1 Xbox 360 game.
Was there ever going to be any doubt that it was going to be the Mass Effect series? And yes, I'm lumping them all together because it really is one big story, and I really consider it to be one big epic role-playing game. So what makes it better than all the others? Well, again, it just has so many elements that I love. It's science fiction. It's truly epic. I mean, the story in this is really amazing. It also has really memorable and complex characters. For instance, not all the characters are likable. Some of them are, frankly, well, they annoy the shit out of you. But then you'll have characters that you can fall in love with, or maybe just be friends with. I mean, there's just so much depth to the character interaction in this game. I also feel like this game had a very enjoyable combat engine. Now, to be fair, the first Mass Effect, it was a little clunky around the edges, but by the second and third game, it was a joy to play this game. Also, this game allowed you to play your main character the way you want. And so you can play as male or female, and you can play as good or bad, and also shades of in between. Now, I know a lot of people weren't exactly crazy about the original ending to this series, and if I'm fair, I would say, yeah, I kind of fit into that camp as well. I think, frankly, it's just because it was a little bit disappointing, especially when the series was so epic, and I just didn't want it to end. And if it had to end, well, I kind of want a little bit more closure than we got. Although I do have to say that I downloaded the additional ending that they released after that, and it was definitely a little bit more satisfying. So if you do play this game, definitely get that and give it a shot. All right, guys, well, that is my top 10 games for the Xbox 360. Now, you probably noticed that I tend to lean more towards the single-player experience and also role-playing games. And frankly, that's just because there were so many great ones released for it. But the thing is that there's a ton of other great games, too. So here at the end, I'm going to show a bunch of honorable mentions across every single genre. I think you guys are going to really enjoy that. But personally, I would love to know, if you had to come up with a top 10, what would yours be? Please post a comment down below and let's talk about it, because there's so many great games. As always, I want to thank you for watching my channel and thank you very much for subscribing. Take care. Well, to start off honorable mentions, you got to talk about Gears of War 1 and 2. So much fun. Here are some awesome multiplayer games that I dug into: Bad Company 2 and Left 4 Dead 2, which Kinsey actually introduced me to. Most people would assume I would choose Grand Theft Auto, but I actually liked Red Dead Redemption even more. I do love shooters. Here is Death Smiles, a fantastic game, and another really interesting game called Shadows of the Damned. Next up is Alice, Madness Returned. That was a fun game. And another role-playing game. What a surprise. 2 racing games I thought were amazing. We have Need for Speed Most Wanted, but Blur was awesome. Who could forget when Batman Arkham Asylum came out? Man, that was an amazing surprise. And I also really enjoyed Bayonetta. Next up is a cool military shooter called Spec Ops: The Line. Really like this game. And then also Star Wars Force Unleashed. This was a fantastic Star Wars game. Here is the Orange Box with Portal, so awesome. And then also the Tomb Raider reboot was really good. I had a ton of fun playing The Walking Dead and also The Darkness. And of course, it's an Xbox console, so you have to include Halo. And to be honest, actually, I really liked Halo 3 and Halo 4. I thought those were really well-made games. And here are 2 games that almost made my top 10. That is Dishonored and also the Deus Ex reboot. And at the end here are 2 hidden gems: Singularity, such a good game, and also Fear 2. Really fun, great shooters. All right, guys, well, there is my top 10 plus honorable mentions. You're probably wondering where Grand Theft Auto 5 is. I did play that game, I loved it. I just happened to play it on the PlayStation 3. Maybe a future video.